الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My dear Islamic brothers, let's start by sending salutations on the best of creation. Please recite after me. As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Rasulullah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Nabi Allah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nur Allah. The Prophet of mankind, the peace of our heart and mind, the most generous and kind, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, he mentioned, decorate your gatherings with the recitation of salat. As these recitations, as this sending of durood upon me will become nur for you on the day of judgment. So my dear Islamic brothers, this is a very beneficial act for us, to attain salvation, to attain blessing, to attain goodness, to attain ease, to attain success on the day of judgment. And that is to send durood upon the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And Allah Almighty, He also mentions regarding, the believers on the day of judgment, how they are going to be successful, how it's going to become, their time on that day is going to become easy for them. And that is through the nur that they will receive through the mercy of Allah. So the more nur they have, the more easy we can say their affairs on the day of judgment will be. And Allah Almighty, He mentions regarding this in the Holy Quran, and the translation from Kanz al-Iman is that day when you will see the believing men and believing women, that their light runs before them and on their right. So we learn from this verse of the Quran that we're going to need light, nur upon the day of judgment. And one way of attaining this nur on the day of judgment is reciting salat in our gatherings, which we just had the good honor and good fortune of doing so. And there's many ways we can, attain this light, we can attain this nur upon for our hereafter, especially for the day of judgment. And another way that has been mentioned is that the person, who removes the difficulty of his fellow Muslims, who removes the difficulty of them followers of the Prophet ﷺ, that for this person who is in this habit of taking away people's difficulties, helping them when they're in their hardships, this person, he will receive nur upon the day of judgment. Then there's also the other people as well who come and go from the masajid in the night prayers, who walk to the masajid at Isha time, who walk to the masajid at Fajr time, and they come and join the congregation prayer and they read in Jamaat. For these people also, there will be nur for them. When will they be nur for them? On the day of judgment. And as we learn from the verse of the Quran, on the day of judgment, we need nur. This nur will help us get through our stations, get through our tribulations, get through our trials on the day of judgment. And this nur, insha'Allah ta'ala, that we receive through the mercy of Allah will make us successful on the day of judgment. So whenever we have this opportunity, to attain these rewards that we have heard from the Prophet ﷺ, that if you do this, nur will be for you, then we should grasp onto these opportunities with both our hands, at any time possible. And not only that, we should also tell others about these opportunities as well. So we've got this opportunity again. Let's all recite together with love, with affection. Sallu ala al-Habib, sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And today we're gathered for this very, very special gathering. It's a very special gathering. And it's in remembrance, of them great personalities of Islam. It's in remembrance of that greatest family of Islam, the family of the Prophet ﷺ, the family of the Prophet ﷺ, the grandchildren of the Prophet ﷺ. And in this short amount of time that I have taught, what is best to try and deliver, from my weak ability that may benefit us. So in the time I have, I'm going to mention a few points, because the whole story, the whole detailed waqia regarding the events, the build up to the events, what happened after the events, why the events took place, why the Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu did what he did. It's a very, very detailed, and there's many different points, there's many things we need to ponder, there's many lessons for us to learn from this waqia which happened in them blessed land and in them blessed times. But for us to go through all of it in this time is very difficult. But what I advise the brothers is, read, come sit with the scholars, learn, have that mindset, watch the videos of the Sunni ulama regarding the full story of what happened. And what will happen? It will increase your motivation to do something for Islam. Like Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, what did he do for Islam? He gave his life, not only his life, he gave the life of his families. When his son was martyred, Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, what did he say? He said, only if Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam was present in front of me today, I would have said to him that when you sacrificed your son, when you had to sacrifice your son, you did so with your eyes covered. I have given my son with my eyes open in the way of Allah. And then this will remind you that we need to also do something for Islam as well. What are we doing? We're not doing much. But when we listen to the family of the Prophet ﷺ, the greatest of people, what they did for Islam, it should at least motivate us and give us that shame as well, that we should get up as well and do something for Islam. If they could do such a big sacrifice and we can't even come to the masjid, to read one namaz, then we are not worthy to have this nisbat with them. We are not worthy to have this link with them. They sacrificed everything so Islam could prevail. They sacrificed everything so the teachings of Islam stay strong. They sacrificed everything, so as people, we could have the honor of being Muslims. And what are we doing? We're doing the total opposite. We are an embarrassment to our religion. When people look at us, the Muslims in this day and age, they point bad fingers and they say the Muslims are involved in so and so act. When any wrongful act is mentioned, they say that this is the work of the Muslims and the Muslims are involved in this and the Muslims are involved in this. So instead of making the name of Islam and giving it the respect it deserves, as with our actions, we can't dishonor it, but our actions are not giving the right representation of that great status of Islam, of the great sacrifices the great companions radiallahu ta'ala anhum they made because of this great status of Islam. So we need to think. And a point to ponder, the Prophet alayhi salam, he knew about the martyrdom of his grandson. He knew about this and he mentioned this many times, and it's mentioned in the hadith as well. The hadith that I'll mention in front of you today. So it says that the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, he mentioned that, so one wife, Sayyidina Fadl bint al-Harith, the wife of Sayyidina Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anha, states that she once came into the blessed court of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And when she came in the blessed court of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and placed Sayyidina Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu on the blessed lap of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And then Sayyidina al-Fadl radiallahu ta'ala anha, she states that she saw the tears flow down the blessed face of the blessed Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, and they were continuously flowing on his blessed face. His blessed tears were continuously flowing. And then she radiallahu ta'ala anha, she asked, she said, "O beloved of Allah, O Allah's messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, may my mother and father be sacrificed for you. What is the matter? What is the reason for the tears?" And the messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he replied that Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam, he came to me and he informed me, indeed my ummah shall kill this son of mine. Allahu Akbar. And then Sayyidina Fadl radiallahu ta'ala anha, she asked, will the ummah kill this child? The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he replied, indeed the ummah will carry out this horrific deed. And Jibreel alayhi salam has just brought me the red sand of the land upon which Sayyidina Imam Hussein would be martyred. Allahu Akbar. So the Prophet alayhi salam, before this even happened, before this event even happened, he knew about this, what was going to happen to his grandson radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Well, further on, when we get a bit further, we will mention, what did the Prophet alayhi salam, he mentioned in this regards. Some people, they might be of the mindset that the Prophet alayhi salam, as people we mention when we're in difficulty, call out to the Prophet alayhi salam. And the Prophet alayhi salam will help you. When you go to the Rawza Mubarak, give salam to the Prophet alayhi salam. The Prophet alayhi salam will respond to your salam. So what might sit in someone's mind, the Prophet alayhi salam, we all know he loved his grandson dearly. Why couldn't he help his grandson? Why couldn't he, stop this from happening? So we will learn about that anyway, just in case this sits in someone's mind. Or they have learned the teachings from, the wrong places by watching YouTube or not sitting with the ulama who are upon the haqq. Then, these questions sometimes arise in your mind. So this is a very important thing I thought I will mention today in the short time that I have. And further on, we'll mention it after I mention one more hadith about the sand. What was mentioned about the sand? So Sayyidina Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he narrates that the angel of the rain, he sought the permission from the Almighty to come to the court of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even these great angels who had a great status, they even had to seek permission to come to that great court of the Prophet alayhi salam. And the permission was granted and he came to the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And at that time, Sayyidina Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he arrived as well. And he sat on the lap of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam was kissing his grandson out of love and affection. So the angel asked the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, do you love Al-Hussein? And the Messenger replied, of course. And then the angel then replied as well, indeed your nation shall kill him. Allahu Akbar. And the angel said that if it was the desire of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then the angel said, I will show you the soil from the land upon which Sayyidina Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu would be killed. And the angel brought the sand, which was gathered by al-Mu'mineen, Sayyida Salma radiallahu ta'ala anha, in her clothes. And then Sayyidina Salma radiallahu ta'ala anhu states that she placed the sand in a small bottle, and then the sand turned into blood. The same sand that came from that land, the Prophet ﷺ informed that when this sand turns into blood, then no, my grandson has been martyred on that day. And then Sayyidina Salma, she states that she placed this sand in a bottle and she kept it safe, and then the sand turned into the blood on the day of Imam Hussein's martyrdom. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. So back to my previous point, what I was mentioning, what might sit in someone's head. So someone might get the wrong idea, someone might get the wrong thought. That why couldn't the Prophet ﷺ save his own grandson from this if he knew? How can the Prophet ﷺ help us if he couldn't help his grandson? So what did the ulama mention in this regards? So they say some arrogant and rude individuals object that when the Holy Prophet ﷺ was not able to save his own grandson, astaghfirullah, from the calamities that would result in his martyrdom, then how is it possible for the Prophet ﷺ to assist members of the Ummah during the tragedy? So listen to what the ulama write in this matter. They say the fact of the matter is that the beloved of Allah ﷺ, he had the ability to pray to the Lord for the safety of Sayyidina Imam Hussein. If the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed to Allah Almighty, remember this point, if he prayed for Imam Hussein to Allah Almighty for his safety, for these events at Karbala not to happen, then maybe these events, they won't have happened. But the Prophet ﷺ, he did not attempt to relieve his grandson from this tribulation. And what is the reason? What is the reason? But before we go into that, it's therefore incorrect to say that the Prophet ﷺ, he couldn't help his own grandson, so how can he help us? If we know if the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to help his own grandson, he could have, and if he wanted to, he would have. But the reason for not, there was a greater lesson for us in this. There was a greater teaching for the Ummah in this. And what is mentioned, that Sayyidina, if the Prophet ﷺ, he could have saved him from this torment, and he could have saved him from bearing this burden of oppression. But he didn't, because this would increase his elevation, that this would result in, as well mentioned. As example, that can be provided in regards to the difference between ability and choice. For example, if someone is drowning, and the lifeguard is there watching as well, we wouldn't say the lifeguard doesn't have the ability not to save him. If the lifeguard wants to save him at that time, he can go and save him. And if he doesn't want to save him at that time, then he can leave him. In the same manner, you know, the Prophet ﷺ, if he wanted, he could have made dua to Allah Almighty for this tribulation to be avoided. But like I said, there was a greater lesson for the Ummah in this tribulation. What took place? This tribulation came the grandeur and the status of Islam alive. It taught us the lesson that we should not bow down to the oppressors. We should not bow down to the tyrants. And people are telling us to do wrong, and people are telling us to go against the Sharia and the commands of Islam, what has been mentioned to us in the Quran and the Sunnah, then we shouldn't listen to them. We should stick steadfast upon our Quran. We should stick steadfast upon the Sunnah. And how steadfast was the family of the Prophet ﷺ? How steadfast were they upon these teachings, that we don't leave the Quran, we don't leave the Sunnah, we don't leave the way of Islam, we don't bow our heads to the tyrants, we don't bow our heads to the oppressors. How steadfast were they, that they gave their whole family in this mission, that we don't compromise upon our beliefs, we don't compromise upon what? The teachings of the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ. And this is what they have taught us today. And where are the Muslims today? How are we compromising? We don't even have any trial, we don't even have any tribulation, we don't even have anything going on, and we're still compromising, we're still not following the teachings of Islam. And this is our, sad state. So it's a point to remember, it's a point to learn, that don't compromise upon your teachings, don't compromise upon the Islamic knowledge, be steadfast upon these teachings, be steadfast upon this knowledge. And who was the person who was behind all this? Who was the person who was the one that was promoting all these wrongful acts? He was promoting the drinking of alcohol. He was promoting of the marriage between a son and a mother. He was promoting of all these wrongful acts. He was promoting of these taking away the rights of the people. He was promoting this oppression of the people. Who was this person? He was the filth, Yazid. This who this person was. He was disgraced and the wretched Yazid. This was this person. And if Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he didn't stand up to him and they didn't sacrifice their whole family, then this would have been our state today. That this, what we felt we would have been living in, or could have been living in, that drinking alcohol was prevailed. People, son marrying in his own mother was prevailed. And these all things we could have been stuck in. And it could have been a great tribulation for us. It could have been a means of destruction for us. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And the companion of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, he mentions that he heard the Messenger alayhi salam say, the first to alter my path. So even the Prophet ﷺ, he had that knowledge. He had that knowledge that Allah granted him of the unseen. That he knew his grandson was going to be martyred. He knew in which lands he was going to be martyred. And he knew the person who was the one that was going to, be the one that is leading this and giving the commands to the rest of the people. He said that the first to alter my path shall be a man from Banu Umayyah who shall be called Yazid. And this is the Prophet ﷺ. He mentioned all of this before any of this happened. So Allah Almighty granted him that knowledge of the unseen also. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And the waqia is very long. I've just mentioned to you not even a brief description of why this happened. We can't even say this was even 1%. It was very, very less. And time is short, and inshallah ta'ala, our Ustaz will enlighten us more with what happened and what we need to take from this. But my message is from this what I have delivered. Like Imam Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he didn't, bow his head to the oppressors and the wrongdoers and the people who, they promote evil. Because the Quran mentions us to promote good and avoid evil, to stop people from evil, not the opposite way around. So the people who were doing the opposite, Imam Hussein taught us that, stay away from these people and oppose these people, and don't ever follow them and don't ever bow down to them. And today we see the affairs that the Muslims are in because of this. We have got our heads bowed down to the oppressors and those people who are, calling towards all the wrong things. So the least we can do is try to be steadfast on the right path. Try to come to the masajid and read our namaz, read Quran, promote to our brothers to come to the weekly ijtimas, promote to them to come to the Madni kafilas, and have this, be this person who is calling to good and be the opposite of those evil people who are against the grandsons of the Prophet alayhi salam. Ameen bijahin Nabi al-Amin wa sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. May Allah Almighty forgive us if we made any mistakes and give us the ability, to be true lovers of the Prophet alayhi salam's family. Sallu ala al-Habib.